Have you ever found yourself completely wide awake at 3 in the morning, meticulously analyzing a 3-word text message as if it were a remarkably complex, ancient scroll? Society loves to casually label this exhausting habit as simply overthinking, aggressively advising you to just relax and let things flow. But I am here to explicitly tell you that your relentlessly active mind is absolutely not a flaw. Rather, it is a glaring symptom of a highly valuable asset being ruthlessly stolen. You are actively allowing a remarkably low-effort man to live completely rent-free in the absolute most exclusive, expensive real estate on Earth, your mind. Today, we are initiating a profound psychological protocol I call the mental eviction. We will dissect the paradox of your intuition, expose the deeply toxic illusion of control, and teach you exactly how to flawlessly redirect your brilliant cognitive energy back into your own magnificent empire. If you are entirely exhausted from trying to do his thinking for him, you must drop absolutely everything and listen to me very closely. Welcome to Destiny's Decree. Let us begin by fundamentally dismantling the incredibly toxic myth that your overthinking is merely a pathetic sign of irrational anxiety. As a highly intelligent, deeply empathetic woman, your mind is a remarkably finely tuned instrument. When you suddenly find yourself obsessively dissecting a man's confusing behavior, it is almost never because you are simply crazy. It is almost always because your deep, sovereign intuition has forcefully detected a glaring, undeniable inconsistency. Your delicate nervous system is brilliantly sounding the alarm that his charming words are fundamentally failing to align with his actual, tangible actions. However, the profound, suffocating torment of overthinking is born in the exact moment you attempt to use your beautiful, entirely logical mind to rationalize his profound lack of integrity. You desperately try to build a complex, reasonable narrative to perfectly explain away his toxic, avoidant behavior, essentially doing the heavy emotional lifting that he is entirely too cowardly to do himself. You bend your logic backward to find a perfectly good excuse for why he hasn't called, assuming he must be terribly stressed or intimidated by your greatness. You must deeply, intimately understand that this overwhelming mental exhaustion is absolutely not a malfunction of your brilliant brain. It is the direct, agonizing result of trying to find logical truth in a space where he has deliberately planted manipulative confusion. By endlessly analyzing his every move, you are essentially trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces have been intentionally hidden from you. It is a completely rigged game, my dear, and the only way to win is to elegantly refuse to play. You must begin to view your brilliant mind not merely as a standard processing center, but as the absolute most exclusive, incredibly expensive real estate in your entire empire. Every single thought, every ounce of your radiant focus, and every drop of your analytical energy is a profoundly valuable currency. When you dedicate agonizing hours to decoding why he hasn't texted, you are effectively taking this premium currency and burning it on a man who has offered you absolutely nothing of substance in return. You are willingly financing his complete lack of effort with your own profound emotional exhaustion. Imagine for a brief moment allowing a completely unkempt, entirely disrespectful stranger to casually walk into the grand lobby of your luxurious palace, set up a messy camp, and live there completely rent-free. This is exactly what you are doing emotionally when you allow a low-effort, highly inconsistent man to entirely dominate your daily thoughts. You are gracefully handing the heavy golden keys of your sovereign kingdom to a squatter who flatly refuses to pay the necessary emotional toll of genuine consistency, profound respect, and clear communication. A truly sovereign, high-value woman intimately understands the fundamental concept of mental return on investment. She categorically refuses to allow any man to occupy her precious mental space unless he is actively paying the rent through undeniable loyalty and crystal-clear actions. By fiercely protecting your cognitive real estate, you force him to either step up and pay the high price of admission or remain permanently locked outside the velvet ropes, bringing us to a rather dangerous psychological trap that keeps you overthinking. The deeply addictive, exhausting nature of overthinking is almost always fueled by a rather toxic, completely fabricated illusion of control. As a highly capable, fiercely intelligent woman, you are remarkably accustomed to flawlessly solving complex problems. If something is broken in your life, you simply analyze it, understand the mechanics, and swiftly fix it. You mistakenly apply this exact same brilliant logic to his highly confusing behavior, falsely believing that if you can just figure out exactly why he is pulling away, you can somehow magically repair the entire dynamic. You read entirely too many dark psychology articles, desperately trying to diagnose his avoidant attachment style or his deep-seated childhood traumas, essentially acting as his unpaid, highly invested therapist. But you must face a very cold, undeniably brutal truth. Understanding the precise, intricate mechanics of his confusion absolutely does not change his actual, tangible actions. You can meticulously map out his entire psychological profile, but it will not magically transform him into a consistent, communicative, and deeply reliable partner. This exhaustive, relentless analysis is nothing more than your brain's desperate attempt to feel safe in an emotional environment where he has deliberately introduced agonizing instability. You are vigorously exhausting your own premium energy trying to forcefully decode a message that he intentionally wrote in invisible ink. The true sovereign power does not lie in finally understanding his confusing darkness, but rather in recognizing the profound futility of the entire exercise, which requires a highly specific, impeccably disciplined psychological shift. When your brilliant mind begins to aggressively spiral into this familiar, exhausting abyss of endless scenarios, you must forcefully deploy what I call the drop-the-pen protocol. A high-value woman intimately understands that it is absolutely not her job to painstakingly draft the narrative of a man's life. When he hands you a completely blank page of mixed signals and toxic inconsistencies, your immediate conditioned instinct is to grab the pen and desperately fill in the agonizing blanks with your own logical assumptions. You must elegantly, categorically refuse to do this. You physically and mentally drop the pen, simply staring at the blank page he has arrogantly presented to you. You do not write his emotional apologies for him. You do not meticulously draft complex theories about his hidden motives, and you certainly do not script a beautiful fictional future out of his pathetic bare minimum effort. You must fiercely begin to treat his profound confusion not as a mysterious intellectual puzzle to be brilliantly solved, but as a complete, undeniable answer in itself. In the sovereign, unshakable realm of high-value psychology, if you are genuinely confused about a man's true intentions, the answer is always an absolute, unwavering no. A man of genuine substance, deep integrity, and profound masculine energy will never, ever intentionally leave a magnificent woman in a dark state of agonizing guesswork. He writes his own actions perfectly clearly, in bold, unmistakable ink. By aggressively refusing to fill in his blanks, you instantly reclaim your premium cognitive power, completely stepping out of the chaotic, exhausting role of the anxious detective. And once you have successfully dropped the pen, you are left with a massive, roaring engine of brilliant mental energy that must be immediately, ruthlessly weaponized for your own benefit. You must intimately understand that you cannot simply command a highly intelligent, remarkably active mind to suddenly become entirely blank and silent. It is a fundamental neurological impossibility. True, lasting mental peace does not stem from aggressively trying to forcefully stop thinking, but from elegantly executing a sovereign redirection of that massive, relentless focus. You must swiftly issue the formal eviction notice to the low-effort squatter occupying your mind, and immediately, aggressively reinvest that premium analytical energy directly back into the thriving infrastructure of your own magnificent empire. Imagine, for a brief, beautiful moment, my dear, if you took the exact same profound, obsessive hours you spent desperately dissecting his confusing text messages and forcefully redirected them entirely toward your financial independence, your artistic passions, or your exquisite physical vitality. You must begin to demand a strict, undeniable return on investment for every single thought you produce. When your mind inevitably attempts to drift back toward his inexplicable silence, you brutally interrupt the pattern. You pick up a complex book on wealth creation, you violently focus on a new, brilliant business strategy, or you pour that fiery, anxious energy into a grueling, transformative workout. You systematically train your delicate nervous system to deeply associate your brilliant analytical power with your own profound elevation, rather than his toxic, exhausting inconsistencies. As you vigorously build your impenetrable empire, the agonizing noise of his confusion will naturally fade into a completely irrelevant, distant whisper. You will finally, beautifully realize that your mind was never actually broken or overly anxious. It simply needed a magnificent, worthy project to flawlessly execute, completely rendering his low-effort existence entirely obsolete. Ultimately, my dear, a man who consistently relies on your exhausting overthinking to comfortably maintain his position in your life is not a mysterious prize. He is a low-effort squatter who simply cannot afford your premium reality. Your absolute power lies in beautifully dropping the pen, issuing the mental eviction, and fiercely protecting the throne of your own magnificent mind. Now, I have a rather vital question for you. What is the absolute most exhausting, ridiculous detail you have ever overanalyzed in a man's confusing text message? Expose your past detective work in the comments below. I always read every single one. If you are entirely ready to reclaim your cognitive real estate and truly master the unspoken dynamics of high-value psychology, ensure you subscribe to Destiny's Decree and firmly ring the notification bell. Until next time, drop the pen and keep your mind completely sovereign.